What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. And it's been a very interesting day for the Seattle Seahawks, for sure. It's honestly been a pretty interesting day for the entire NFL. Zach Bond set the linebacker market pretty much. There have been a series of other moves and seemingly imminent and seemingly potential moves baking across the NFL. So it's been a pretty action-packed day. And I got some thoughts about one particular angle that I want to spend some time on here. And the angle is quite simply, is it too late for the Seattle Seahawks to pivot? And I'll get into what I mean in a second here. First, though, real quick, I want to say I am going to be streaming tonight, but it is going to be on the Bleacher Report. So I know a lot of people are going to want to hear what I have to say in a more long form fashion and maybe even ask questions about the stuff that has happened today. So if you want to do that, you need to download the Bleacher Report app and make an account. I'll be posting the link to the Bleacher Report show a little bit later. So if you have trouble finding it, just keep an eye out for a link to get posted on the channel community tab at around 6, which is about the time I'm going to go live. And then we'll talk about this stuff. And it's mostly going to be Metcalf stuff now, I guess. It has to be. So tune in if that sounds like something that's interesting to you. But it is going to be on Bleacher Report, not YouTube. So understand that. Now, here's what I've been thinking about for the last couple of hours, ever since the initial shock of the DK Metcalf announcement came out. There's a lot of stuff to think about, I think. For one, I do want to stress, we don't know very much yet. We don't. We're speculating, we're guesstimating, we're making assumptions. We don't know a heck of a lot yet. So I'm going to hold off on, the judgments. I'm going to hold off on the blanket assumptions. Like, we don't know if this is going to happen. And for all we know, this is a negotiation tactic for DK to get more money, kind of like what Brandon Ayuk did last offseason. Ayuk actually did something pretty darn similar. A lot of high-profile players do things like this to try to create urgency around an extension. We also don't know why he's doing this, if not that. If he's doing this because he genuinely wants out, we don't know why. We don't know if it's because he doesn't like the team, if he doesn't like being in Seattle, if he doesn't like the fact that we let Lockett go. I will say, regardless of his reason, I think it's pretty bad that this hits right, like literally less than half an hour after the Tyler Lockett release is announced, but we still don't know. So I'm going to give that some time as well. But here's what I'm thinking about with the Seahawks at the moment. Is it too late for us to turn the car around and go back home? And what I mean by that is, so far this offseason, I have gotten a pretty strong impression that the Seahawks are loading up to go for it in 2025. And by it, I mean a playoff run. Not necessarily a Super Bowl win. You can never really gear up for a Super Bowl win because it's so hard to win a Super Bowl. What you do is you gear up for a deep playoff run and hope a couple of things break your way along the way, and you get that Super Bowl win. But what I'm talking about is swinging for the fences. It felt like that's where things were headed, and that was where I was mentally going into this first week of free agency that's coming up. But now we gotta at least reconsider here. Now, I believe that if the Seahawks are able to get a first round pick plus either another mid round pick or a decent or intriguing wide receiver for DK Metcalf, then that should be fine. That should be adequate. You still have a little bit of a degree of difficulty there, but it then becomes very doable to immediately replace Metcalf and also get your wide receiver core where it needs to be, especially under Kubiak, who is not a big wide receiver guy. So if DK Metcalf is traded and you can get back a first round pick and maybe somebody like some people are talking about a Quentin Johnston or a Rashad Bateman, basically one of these first round wide receivers that has been a disappointment so far, or another pick that could be used to get another, at the very least, intriguing player in the draft on top of the first round pick, okay, then I think we just roll on. However, we have to be real about the possibility that that will not be out there for DK Metcalf. And in fact, I've heard a couple of people speculate, not report, but speculate that the return on a DK Metcalf trade would be more in the realm of 1 third-round pick. And I want to be clear. Obviously, if that's the case, I would never make that trade in a million years. I wouldn't even think about it. Like, to me, that's, I laugh, I hang up the phone, and I block your number for insulting me. But at the same time, this team might feel like doing that trade just to get Metcalf out of here is still better than anything else. There might be stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. So that may end up being, or something slightly better than that may end up being what we get. And if that's the case, we need to ask ourselves, can we really go for it in 2025? Because at that point, okay, you would need to add another really good receiver and another decent receiver, right? You don't need something great because of Kubiak's offense, but you're going to need another really good receiver, and you're going to need another capable receiver, right? You need to remake the interior of the offensive line. I don't know exactly who, and I don't know exactly how, but you probably need 2 really good guys in the middle there, or at the very least good. Defensively, you need a nose tackle, maybe 2. You need an edge rusher, maybe just a rotational 4th guy, but maybe somebody better than that, depending on how you feel about the guys we have. We need probably at least 1 more good corner, and depending on what happens this offseason, maybe more than that. So you're really starting to pile up the list of needs. And look, trading Metcalf, even in the worst case scenario, gives you an extra $11 million to play with. And it would give you, even in the worst case scenario, let's say a 3rd round pick, and probably more, probably at the very least a 2nd round pick. I personally believe we're going to get even more than that, but let's say it's the worst case scenario, because that's what we're dealing with here. Let's say it's like a 3rd round pick. Okay, that's going to help, but then you have to actually hit on pretty much every pitch thrown your way. You cannot miss, right? You cannot spend your top 100 picks. Like, you're going to have, 4 picks in the top 100? You got to get 4 guys that are ready to make meaningful contributions as rookies, right? You can't have a Christian Haynes. Honestly, you can't even really have a Byron Murphy. You need players that can make immediate contributions like Tyrese Knight did at the very least last year. And then you need to hit on your free agency signings too. The draft is not going to be enough to do all that. By the way, if you cut Noah Fant, then you need to bring in another tight end, and probably kind of sort of 2 of them, because one of them is going to need to be able to do the fullback stuff that Kubiak wants. So with that list of things that we need to get through in this scenario, is it reasonable to do it in one offseason? And do you want to even try for it when there is another way? Theoretically, at least, the other way is slam the brakes, don't spend money in free agency, don't overextend yourself, try to clear out cap space for 2026, and just kind of let 2025 be a whatever season. Kind of a just refresh everything for 2025. 6. Excuse me. So here's the question, because there was definitely a time this offseason when I would have been pretty open to that. But is it still a possibility now? And why? And for the most part, I think the answer to that question is yes. We haven't done anything with Geno Smith yet. We could still trade him, could still release him, could just have him play out the last year of his deal and then let him go at the end of the season. We haven't done anything with Metcalf yet, of course. Haven't done anything with Nwosu yet. So you could just leave his contract alone, or I guess release him. It doesn't seem like we want to do that, but you could. So you could do these things. Here's the problem as I see it. 2 things. Number 1, Big Cat Leonard Williams. Let's talk about the impact of the decisions we made earlier this offseason. So this is Leonard Williams's Spotrac page as of this moment. His cap hit for the 2025 season is 15.1 million, basically 15.1. And that number might seem low to you because it was much higher before the restructure. If we go to Wayback Machine and we look at what it was last year, the cap hit was going to be 29.2 million. So we basically cut the cap hit in half with the restructure. So that is very clearly a go for it in 2025 move. That is something you do because you have something you want to do with that 14.1 million you create that needs to happen now. So when you do that, you're saying, we're going for it. And now you've done this, you can't take it back. And what if you now decide, wait a minute, we don't want to do it. We want to go back. We want to slam the brakes. Can you do it? Look at where the money went. Okay, some of it went into 2026, right? The 2026 cap hit was about 25 million. Now it's 29.6 million. So it went up by about 4.6 million. That's, I mean, it's not a massive number, but it is certainly a number. It is of some impact. And we also have the void year hits now. We had no void year hits initially in this contract. Now we have 2 at about 4.7 million per. So what we did is we took about 4.7 million out of the cap hit 3 times and spread it out among the last year of the deal and then the following 2 years as void year hits. And that really kind of stinks. Now, again, I want to stress, it's not the end of the world. It's not even 2% of the salary cap probably by the time we get there. But it's still an element that if we knew we wanted to slam the brakes on 2025, we never, ever would have even considered doing this. So that's the main thing that makes this hard for me. You've taken on these additional cap hits, 4.7 million each in 26, 27, 28. Okay? That's number one. It's hard to justify that, but it's not the end of the world either. You could just say, oh, well, we made a $14 million mistake. We screwed up. We did. $14 million mistake approximately. Let's just write that off as a mistake and move on. Well, the other issue as I see it would be Kubiak. I don't think Kubiak would have come here if he thought 2025 was going to be some kind of rebuilding year. I don't. And not that he can really do much about it now, but I do wonder what would happen. I do wonder how he would feel, how he would react if he knew, if at some point the team went up to him and was like, hey, you're not going to have much to work with this year, just so you know. Because Kubiak's a guy who I'm sure dreams of bigger and better things at some point in this league, like being a head coach. Hard to be a head coach when you got not much to work with as an offensive coordinator. I mean, you could really prove yourself if things go well, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about today. Is it too late to slam the brakes? I kind of feel like it is. And that's all well and good if you end up keeping DK or you get a big return for DK. Like I said, some combination of first-round pick and good player at receiver with some intriguing upside, or first-round pick and mid-round pick. But if you end up getting a lot less than that, this becomes... It feels like Schneider got caught with his pants down here. It just does. I don't know if he did, but it does kind of feel like it, don't it? I don't know. It doesn't feel good. And until Metcalf either rescinds his trade request or he gets traded for a significant haul, it's not going to feel great. It's going to feel like we're a little bit stuck. And there's no undoing some of the decisions that have been made. Now, you can still pull the plug on some of the other things you probably were thinking about. In this scenario, you don't extend Geno. You don't do anything with Nwosu's contract. You just let things play out, or maybe even move those guys. But, again, that requires you to pick a path. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. Going to be another video in a couple hours. It won't be much, but it'll be a video. And Bleacher Report stream tonight. See you guys later. Go Hawks.